In 1909, an elite British captain named Montague Parker raised an enormous sum, $125,000, to launch an expedition in Jerusalem. He wasn't relying on historical texts or geographic surveys. He was taking directions from a Finnish spiritualist who claimed to be receiving supernatural coded messages directly from King Solomon. Parker used that funding to bribe Ottoman officials, allowing his men to dig in dark clothing at night. Their target was directly underneath the Dome of the Rock. They pried up the floorboards of the sacred Muslim shrine, attempting to bore a secret tunnel down into the Temple Mount itself to find Solomon's gold. The operation lasted only a few nights before they were caught. Parker and his crew fled on horseback, making it to the coast and boarding their yacht by the narrowest of margins. The botched heist caused an international diplomatic scandal, and in the end, they found zero treasure. Even the fully licensed expeditions of the era were often highly funded vandalism. When Irish archaeologist R.A.S. McAllister excavated the ancient city of Gezer, he hired an uncontrollable workforce to dig enormous trenches. The dirt from a new trench was immediately dumped right back into the previous one. He effectively turned over the entire mound like a bulldozer, scrambling the historical layers and losing massive amounts of data. Whether driven by greed or methodological incompetence, these early expeditions were actively destroying the very history they claimed to be uncovering. But destroying ancient sites was only part of the problem. Soon, the discipline became a convenient cover for international espionage. Just before the outbreak of the First World War, the British hired a young T.E. Lawrence to conduct an archaeological survey of the Sinai Peninsula. He was ostensibly there to map ancient monuments. In reality, he was scouting invasion routes and mapping water sources for the British Army to use against the Ottoman Empire. Decades later, Nelson Gluck played a similar role. While surveying the harsh terrain of the Negev Desert, he was secretly working for the OSS, the predecessor to the CIA. During World War II, his job was to find potential retreat routes through the wilderness in case the British Army was defeated in Egypt. In its early days, biblical archaeology operated less as a pursuit of the ancient past and more as a tool to secure wealth, map territory, and gain military advantage for modern empires. Eventually, the discipline matured. Pioneers like George Reisner and William F. Albright introduced rigorous methods. They implemented strict stratigraphy, carefully peeling the earth back layer by layer to track different time periods, and used precise analysis of ceramic pottery to date those layers accurately. These new tools allowed researchers to reconstruct history with incredible precision, but even the best equipment couldn't strip away the deeply held motives of the people doing the digging. When Israeli general and archaeologist Yigal Yadin excavated the desert fortress of Masada in the 1960s, the dig had an explicit, modern purpose. He used the story of ancient Jewish rebels to deliberately forge modern Israeli national identity and military resolve. On the other hand, British archaeologist Kathleen Kenyon brought her own severe biases to the field. An agnostic with known anti-Semitic views, she stubbornly ignored physical evidence at her digs in Jericho and Jerusalem if it contradicted her personal beliefs. Meticulous excavation methods are useful only if the archaeologist is willing to follow the data. When the goal is to serve an agenda, the dirt itself becomes a weapon of prejudice. By the 1970s, this tension erupted into an academic civil war. Archaeologist William G. Dever launched an aggressive campaign to entirely eradicate the term biblical archaeology. He argued that tying the science to the Bible cheapened the discipline, associating it with Bible thumpers who were trying to force the evidence. Dever succeeded in changing the terminology, but the fallout was severe. Belittled and marginalized, many Christian universities and seminaries completely pulled their funding and deleted archaeology from their academic programs. In the vacuum left behind, a new group of scholars gained prominence. Known as the minimalists, these media-savvy academics take an extreme, skeptical view, actively using archaeological data to deconstruct and discredit the biblical texts entirely. The discipline had split into warring ideological camps. Between those trying to prove the Bible and those trying to dismantle it, objective discovery was being crowded out by the noise of the debate. By the 1970s, a movement called New Archaeology started to change the scale of research, led by a generation of detail-oriented female pioneers like Ruth Amiron and Trudy Doughton. The core philosophy of New Archaeology was to stop hunting for monumental walls and golden idols just to validate a text. Instead, researchers began analyzing microscopic data, collecting pollen, seeds, and animal remains to understand the culture and daily life of a settlement. This chart illustrates animal bone counts at Khirbet Qeiyafa. Archaeologists identified it as an Israelite settlement, not by finding a golden inscription, but by the near-total absence of pig bones in the site's trash, contrasting sharply with neighboring non-Israelite sites. This approach is slow and expensive. It requires washing excavated soil through fine mesh screens, a process called wet sifting, and meticulously extracting the fragile, mundane artifacts of daily life. The most accurate historical truths are rarely found in grand palaces. They are hidden in the mundane daily trash of ancient lives. Today, a modern ethical consensus guides Gediscipline, the Andrews University Archaeological Creed. The rules are strict. State exactly what you find without twisting data to fit a biblical narrative. And because excavation destroys a site, publish results quickly before data is permanently lost. But the final rule is the most liberating. We must take the history of the text seriously, but we must not place upon archaeology the burden of proving the Bible. True science doesn't dig to confirm our pre-existing beliefs. It digs to silently listen to exactly what the ancient dust has.